Our next speaker is Frank Zindler, who is a renowned linguist and expert in biblical archaeology. He is also prominent for his numerous debates with creationists. He is the editor of the American Atheist Press and the American Atheist magazine, and one of the foremost spokesmen in our movement, defending the need for critical thinking and science in the modern era. Please join me in welcoming Frank Zindler.
I'm not sure that everyone during the march got to see this sign, but I want to hold it up now so the cameras can see it and you all can see it. Let's keep the Constitution a godless document. It is godless. Well, as I look out at this crowd, I think there's hope, despite what I'm going to tell you. The government of the United States of America kneels in thrall to religion. Priests and preachers have triumphed over the Constitution of our country. The wall of separation between state and church has not only been sapped and mined and breached by the forces of superstition, the parts of it that remain appear about to be incorporated into the wall of a church, a state church. With the victory of faith-based forces, science and learning, the age-old victims of religion now face a danger such as they have not seen since the time of the Holy Roman Inquisition. The threat to science posed by religion is a peril to us all, for it is science that has been our great benefactor, liberator, and secular savior. It is science that has buoyed us up over the dark and swelling tide of superstition, faith, and ignorance, and has carried us to within sight of a world more beautiful by far than any paradise conjured by the ancient dreams of primitive priests. It is not only our liberty for which we must fear if religion consummates its conquest of the Capitol, the White House, and the Supreme Court. Our very lives and those of our descendants are in jeopardy. Given the grave environmental dangers confronting a species that has soiled its nest, a species that has multiplied beyond the carrying capacity of the spaceship it calls Earth. Facts, facts, and more facts must be collected relating to the problem, and they must be evaluated and used to find solutions that will allow the survival of Homo sapiens. The fantasies and prayers of religion simply will not do. Nothing fails like prayer. If a government relies upon a God, who can rely upon that government to find solutions to the world's problems? If elected officials believe in an undetectable world beyond the reach of science, who can trust their judgment in the real world? Since science is the only antidote to the lethally wishful thinking of religion, it is worrisome to the edge of terrifying to discover that the chief executive of this great nation is woefully ignorant of science. Although these United States of America are the fruit of the period known as the Enlightenment, a period when religion was subjected to scientific study and many had cast off its shackles, they are now governed by an evangelist in chief rather than by a scientist and discoverer of truth such as Thomas Jefferson. The man who has his finger on the button that could launch a nuclear Armageddon cannot even pronounce the word nuclear. Worse yet, his mispronunciation of the word nuclear would seem to signal the total depth of his understanding of physics. The threat to us all from this embarrassing situation would not be so grave if the president had realized the danger in his disability and had surrounded himself with competent scientific advisors. But alas, his very ignorance of science has prevented him from realizing the urgency of seeking good scientific advice. Formerly, the National Science Advisor, as head of the White House Office of Science and Technology Policy, held a near cabinet-level position with the title Assistant to the President. Dr. John H. Marburger, the President's advisor, does not have such a title, nor does he have much clout with his chief. An executive order simply refers to him as, quote, a federal government official. At first, when George Bush came to power, it seemed there might not even be a science advisor at all, and it was not until 9 months later that Dr. Marburger was confirmed. This initial disdain of science has translated into a number of actions which have put us and the whole human race in peril. The website of Health and Human Services and the NIH have yielded to radical religious pressure and have removed important information relating to reproductive health from the sites. David Hager, author of Stress and a Woman's Body, a book that promotes the restorative power of Jesus Christ in one's life, has been appointed chairman of the Health Drugs Advisory Committee, the Food and Drug Administration. The Bush administration has stacked an advisory panel on childhood lead poisoning with lead industry allies. Apparently thinking scientific truth can be voted on, Claude Allen, Deputy Secretary of HHS, explains this shocking situation by noting, in getting broad views, we think industry has a voice and should have a voice. Why shouldn't we set foxes to guard the hen house? Well, I'll skip over the other things that he has done. President Bush, like the angel who has chased Adam and Eve from the Garden of Eden, does not want us to have a chance to eat the fruit of the tree of life, and he has put lids and serious limitations on therapeutic cloning. Bush's most generous campaign supporters will benefit from his anti-environmental decisions and from the priests and preachers who supplied him with votes. They will benefit from the harm he has done to health and reproductive programs and research. But can all the president's actions be explained as simply the product of greed and self-interest? I don't think he is really that evil. Rather, I think his ignorance of science allows him, with a clean conscience, to harm the environment and block our prospects for life-saving medical breakthroughs. He knoweth not what he doeth. He can collude with greedy and conscienceless corporations because he does not understand the reality of climate change and the dire ecological consequences of Earth's warming. He doesn't understand that ecologists are scientists. He thinks they are just wacko, tree-hugging, bird-watching eccentrics who don't understand economics. He is unaware that economics is a sub-discipline of ecology. If the president could understand how overpopulation is a major contributor to the strife and violence so rampant in the world today, he could not have caved in to the Pope and withheld funding for the UN Population Fund. If the president realized that acorns are not oak trees, he would not be trying to suppress abortion rights. If he understood that embryos are not persons, he would not oppose therapeutic cloning, a technique that potentially could allow us indefinitely to replace worn-out body parts and give us a shot at practical immortality. Alas, our president is so uninformed on this subject, he thinks that mad cloners would be producing identical twins of people who would probably be kept in some sort of laboratory limbo and mined for spare parts. Scientific ignorance is the root of most of the problems facing us at the beginning of this new millennium. It is the job of religion, of course, to keep America ignorant. Priests and preachers are secure in power only if their minions are ignorant of everything except the self-serving propaganda that is fed them by their brainwashers. It is the ignorance fostered by religion that now threatens our very species with extinction. It is this ignorance that has gained control of our federal government. This ignorance must be dispelled. This ignorance must be expelled from the governmental side of the wall that once separated the state from the church in this dear land of ours. Only by expelling religion from the government of this nation can we repair the damage done by the failure of reality testing that it has fostered. A burden has fallen upon us, the godless Americans who assemble here today, and the millions of our colleagues who could not be here. It is we who must restore America to the status of being one nation under the Constitution instead of one nation under a God. It is we who must bring the enlightenment of science into governments, governments all the way from school boards to the White House. We must start next Tuesday. In the long line of generations stretching into the unmeasured prehistoric past, no generation has been saddled with so heavy a responsibility as that which we must now assume. Never before have the stakes been so high. Never before has the penalty for inaction been so horrific. We might not have another chance. Religion has slipped a Trojan horse into the public barn so that priests secreted inside might feed at monetary mangers created for the public weal. That horse must be turned out to pasture in the churchyard. Let the churches provide the green stuff to feed it. We godless Americans are the ones who have to do it. We must act, and we must act forcefully and decisively. We must expose the fallacies of religious thought both inside and outside of government. We must prevent the relapse of our society into the dark ages. We must set government once again upon the road of reason, the road of reality. We must rebuild the wall of separation. We must restore a semblance of sanity to government. We must educate our representatives and our endangered nation. We must not fail. We dare not fail.
Among the victims of religious intolerance have been children. Today, religious groups continue their efforts to deny medical care or beat children under the excuse of imposing so-called Bible discipline. Child Incorporated, Children's Health Care is a legal duty, leads the fight to defend young people against religion-based neglect and exploitation.